New Thought Media Network. We are a global broadcast network of positive music, media, and entertainment, inspiring humanity's evolution along the journey of enlightenment and creating a world of love, peace, empowerment, and prosperity for all. New Thought Media Network. Positively inspiring.
And hello again, dear ones. Dr. Robert with you over here.
Rev Z right here.
And this is New Thought today for October 22nd, 2024. What a great fall, beautiful day here it is in Colorado. It's good to be with you again, Z.
Yeah, good to be here. It is a beautiful day in the Colorado City, and hoping to get out and get a little outdoor activity later on before the sun go down. But yeah, it's been nice.
Exactly. And the sun
Been
does
nice.
go down. Sun does go down early these evenings, so it's a good excuse to knock off work maybe a little early, get out and get a little exercise up with you. I know my dogs appreciate it when we get out early at this time of the year. So
Yes.
folks,
Yes.
thanks for being with us today. If you're watching online and you're with us live, you're welcome to join the conversation and share your comments. If you're watching at another time, you're welcome to share your comments, and we'd be happy to get back with you at our earliest convenience. So, all right. So, Z, you and I, we had the great pleasure of actually spending the weekend together, which is kind of crazy. We live 15 minutes apart from each other. We barely ever see each other except on, I shouldn't say barely ever. We see each other well enough, but we got a chance to actually spend a few days hanging out and being in the same experience and listening to the same speakers, sharing in some of the same workshops and some of the same events. It was new for those that didn't follow along. This was the New Thought in the Desert, put on by the Center for Spiritual Living Las Vegas and their partners in ministry, which include Unity of Las Vegas, and New Thought Media Network was there as well as others. Tell me a little bit about your experience. Z, what did you think of the whole thing?
Oh wow. Yeah, New Thought in the Desert was as mystical as the desert itself, as far as I'm concerned. You know, it great music, great people. Reverend David Alt was there, did the Sunday service, and you know, I as I said before we got on the air, I'm still processing all of the stuff that I took in, and sometime tonight or first thing tomorrow morning, I'll sit down. I got a bunch of notes. I'm gonna sit down and kind of put those in a succinct order, if you will. But I think the overwhelming thing to me, a couple of things, was one is we have to stay curious. We have to stay in the question. We have to ask the question. The quality of our answers are directly proportionate to the quality of our questions. And so if we're asking simple questions or asking no questions at all, take a look and see what's happening, and that might be an indication of if we can go deeper with our questioning, and not in a defiant kind of way, but questioning in an open and surrendering way to say, I am not the know-it-all. I'm open. I'm surrendering. I have some input in some, but you know, I can learn some more. So I'm gonna ask a question and then I'm gonna surrender.
Exactly. I am not the know-it-all, although there is within me that which does know it all,
Most
and
definitely.
we can access that. And that's part of what a weekend like this was, is an opportunity to access that knowledge beyond our everyday. That
Hmm.
those places where we're not operating from our everyday experiences and therefore our everyday biases and our everyday conclusions about what's supposed to be happening or how it's supposed to be happening as well. I agree with you, and you know it's fun because we both had a chance to speak and to
Hmm.
present from the stage, and in a series of six speakers, which was a really wild experience. I don't know, I liked it. I don't know that I've ever been in a lineup where there were six of us in what, just over 2 hours, I think, is what we had
Yeah.
all told,
Yeah.
that session. And for six speakers who had really, we weren't even working with a theme. It wasn't even like, I think that the most of a theme that we had was standing strong, new thought in the desert, and um, and yet the entire lineup of speakers created an well, you said it and I'm going to repeat it, a mystical experience where we were open to a new way to see our lives, I think. And
Yeah.
without correlation, without, chatting about it beforehand, or if you asked anybody, any one of the speakers, what are you talking about, all we said was the title of our talk. I asked Sunshine, "What are you talking about?" And she said, she gave me the title of her talk. I asked you, you gave me the title of your talk. It's fun that way, and
Yeah.
we could do something memorable.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's amazing. Part of the mysticism of it, the metaphysics of it, is just that no one had any idea other than a topic, which in some cases was somewhat misleading if you just went by the topic of what you thought you might hear and what you heard. And all of them were like tag teaming into the other. And they all had this same theme of we got to be in the question. We have to ask the right questions. I mean, we're dealing with a time period right now as the election comes close, and there are all kind of questions right now.
Yeah,
And some of these questions are frivolous questions, I believe, and some of them are real serious questions that deserve an answer or a response. And I believe that if those questions are coming from a sincere place, we're going to get some answers to help uh, 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 better understand the time and place that we're in, and to be able to make it through with a smile, if you will.
yeah.
Maybe a grimacing smile in some cases, but a smile nonetheless.
Or one of those, "What is that?" kind of smile. But yeah, uh, and we're going to veer away a little bit from the conference itself and from the weekend here in this. I sense, because we didn't. Nobody was really talking about directly about things like the election or the candidates or any of that stuff in the body of the experience. And yet, it's not, you can tell that everyone there is looking at how to apply the lessons of the day to the events of our time. And
Hmm.
this upcoming election is one of those. I found myself recently saying and thinking to myself that the world doesn't isn't going to end on November 6th. The world is not going to end with this election. The world is not, and that's not as a way to, like, soften the blow for a disappointment, or to, because we don't know what will happen regardless of who wins the election. We don't know what we can only right now go on what we see and what we sense is best for everybody. So do that, folks, right? here's our weekly plug. Make sure you get out and vote. If you're not registered to vote, get out there and register and get your vote in and get your vote counted. And ballots arrived in the mail here in Colorado just last week. I intend to be sitting with mine throughout this week and taking some time to really prayerfully consider some of the things that I don't know about, the races and the issues that I'm not aware of currently, and not just take it at face value, but make it a sacred practice, make it a spiritual practice to discern where and how I'm voting, and that's our reminder for that. However, so back to my point, it really felt like everything we experienced this past weekend was applicable to what's happening in our world, to the changes that are occurring, and regardless of outcome, to know that we are lifted, supported, served, buoyed, or even just cradled in the strong arms of spirit as we continue forward.
Well, and one thing that was said, and I don't know who said it, but it stuck with me about our sacred mission during this journey we're on. And that statement was, our sacred mission is to be happy.
Yeah.
And in that moment, it sounded kind of simple and glib, and I'm like, yeah, okay, yeah. But then when I saw it and sat there and thought about it, it is, because when we at least for myself, when I was looking at that very glibly, I'm putting it that everybody defines happiness as the same thing, but they don't, and they never will. So happiness for some people is planting a garden, being a farmer. That's happiness. Some people are running a corporation. Some people are singing, dancing, teaching. And so if we look at life as this, the mission is to be happy, then we can begin to do the heavy work, if you will, and know that it sometimes, a singer or a musician will tell you very easily, that wasn't my best song today, right? Because they know there'll be up days and down days, but overwhelmingly the days are good, the days are happy, and that's I believe is something that's worth pondering, worth contemplating on, asking ourselves, if my mission is to be happy, what does it take, or what will it take for me to be that?
It's a powerful question. It's a very, very powerful question, right? What will it take for me? And as you're sharing, it's very subjective because it is very, very different for everyone. And so what will it take for me to, in this moment, experience happiness? And I think more importantly also is then, how do we share it? And how do we give that that same experience, that same understanding, that same principle, feeling, tone, I guess, to others? And for a long time, like, all right, I know you, Z. We've known each other for a long time now, and I know you've gone to a lot of these types of things over the years, and I have too. And some of them, you walk back into your real life and it feels like, well, nothing changed. I'm still right here in the same old I was when I left last week. And now, for me, now that I am on sort of the other side of that, when I am a bit more of a presenter and part of the creation process, and not just a receiving member in the audience of things like this, it's a very different perspective on how do we create that? What feeling tone do we want to create? And how do we ensure that people have something that they can use to make their everyday life a bit better?
Yeah. And there was one point that came out a couple of times, is that part of the journey now for everyone, regardless of whether it's a spiritual journey or whatever, is to be the sermon, is to be the talk, is to be the inspiration. Because the presentation of an idea is so easy now and so not be authentic. Um, but watching someone do something well is a sermon all unto itself that evokes all aspects of human existence, right? And so the more we can begin to be the message, to walk and talk the message, to be that happiness, someone's going to, if they're in the right vibration and frequency, and we talked a lot about, in my mind, energy and frequencies and resonation and all these things and correspondence. When someone's in that vicinity with the right resonance, with the right frequency, they will be attracted, or you will be attracted. So it's better to clear the channel so that you can get a clear message than to run around trying to find a message.
Right. Yep. As you're sharing that, I'm thinking of Reverend Dr. David Alt. And there, he's the keynote this past weekend, no question about it. He provided a talk and a sharing on Friday night at the installation ceremony, and Saturday was one of the speakers in the lineup of speakers, and Sunday presented the Sunday service. And all three of his messages, all three of his opportunities to address the audience were different and unique, and yet were really authentically him and his journey. And I've looked to him as a mentor for quite a while now because of the way he does that. And it isn't something he switches on and switches off. It's and it continues, because he put out a post today about his experience this weekend in Las Vegas that had absolutely nothing to do with the conference, that had absolutely nothing to do with the weekend and the experience itself, but was something that he had, an experience he had of a communication with a departed friend, that didn't necessarily change how he showed up at the event, but kind of but reaffirmed who he has always been prior to the event. I hope I'm making sense of that. And he shared that on Facebook and other avenues this morning, of how he is an absolute living demonstration of this philosophy in all moments. That's the other thing I think is so important about coming together like this and being with friends and others, people maybe we haven't met but except on Facebook. I mean, I met someone new that I had never met other than on Facebook. I met people that I have not met even on Facebook, and others that are like, oh yeah, I've been following you for a while now. Oh really? Great. Yeah. I hope you enjoy what you still enjoy it. But David does it in such a way that it's very, very tender and very authentic.
Yeah. And that was the overwhelming feeling tone, if you will, of the whole weekend for me. There was a sensitivity there to everybody's needs, right? And there were things that came up, some that needed attention to, and this, that, and the other, and all of it was handled with the sense of care and honor. And I think, there's a way to look at this and say, if I'm in a space and I'm acting rude or harsh or whatever, is that necessary? Number one, and will it get me the results that I hope to get? Will it serve me? And of course, sometimes we have to be stern and firm. We know that, but that's not the case for everything. And even when I have to be stern and firm, I can still do it with kindness. I can still do it
Yeah.
with honor.
You,
And
you're striking something in me that I think is kind of important. I'd love to explore a little bit more with you today. Um, in New Thought, we use that term unconditional love. And yet there is the both and in there. I was doing something and I looked up unconditional love, and I love how now Google not only gives you the top ranked web pages to go look at, but it also gives you their AI feedback. So you get a little bit of AI, the AI definition, and then you get SEO type results. And one of the things that the AI returned when looking up unconditional love is the um, the opportunity to experience abuse.
mm-hmm.
So there has to be and so there has to be boundaries.
Yep.
And it's like, is it really unconditional love if there's so are boundaries conditions? Is that a conditional a boundary, or can I still love even if you're pushing my boundaries?
Yeah, that's a good question about the boundaries being a condition. I mean, in some ways, I would say yes, because I can always go beyond a boundary.
But I'm not going to
However,
tell someone that's being abused that you've got to go love your abuser.
exactly.
I can't tell people to love their oppressor, even if I am in the midst of saying, well, we've got to love our enemies.
Mm-hmm.
I, you
That's,
know,
I think there is a see, and here again in lies this whole idea about sitting with the question, because I think uh, uh, one statement that David made in this talk on Sunday, he kept emphasizing this job well done, my faithful servant.
yes.
And he was saying that to a situation that was not good. It was a bad situation for him. But he had this epiphany in his mind where he was conversating with God that said, this thing has done its job and you need to honor it and say, well done, my faithful servant.
Good and
Because
fair. Yeah.
although it was a bad situation, it put you in a trajectory. It put you in a frame of mind. It put you in a place of question or wonder or whatever the right word is for that divine spark to click in for you to say, I'm more than my experiences. I am more than this condition. I am this fine light of divine love, light, and energy that is waiting to be ignited. And when I can look at everything and say, well done, my faithful servant, knowing that it has served you in some kind of way to your highest yet to be, then you can be free. Then you can experience real happiness because you're not going to be locked behind some conditional thing.
Right.
But it's a tough task, no doubt.
Yeah. It can be, right? It can be a very tough task to look at the horrors, the suffering, the traumas, the ugliness that we perceive in our lives, and come to a healing of recognition that this too is for me. That this, even here, in the midst of whatever it is, there has to be that which is for my highest and best good
Mm-hmm.
within this.
Yeah, yeah. Someplace, and as you're saying it, I'm thinking about, since we've had these very powerful hurricanes that just came through. But as wild and crazy and destructive as those hurricanes were, at the center of the hurricane, it was very calm.
Yeah.
And so that speaks to this idea, because there was some labyrinth work that went on and talked about, and I was thinking about that, definitely having relatives in Florida and having a few friends there, and some of them being affected by the storms. Um, just thinking about the idea of, from the labyrinth perspective, what does it mean to be on the fringe of the labyrinth and to be at the center of the labyrinth? There are different questions that are asked. There are different vantage points that are seen from those two places, yet all those places are notedly good places, right?
Right.
And so, you know, it boils down to, I believe, in something that was said, this whole idea of perspective, and this whole idea of vision and view, and everything in that vernacular has to be understood to really traverse this path, or to really walk this labyrinth called life.
Yeah.
Because it's someone said that we're living, that our teaching is a philosophy of life and living, and I love that. So, because no matter what the situation is, the philosophy is saying, regardless of the circumstances, regardless of experience and conditions, this philosophy is for life and living. So there is a pathway. There is a way to deal with it. There is a way to move beyond it.
Right.
Looks like all kind of things, but when you can stay in the question, know that we're looking at life and living, and surrender to that, I think, as they say, all things are possible.
Yes. Not only are all things possible, but the things we think about, we bring about.
Yes.
And so we have to stay on that positive side of the question, rather than allowing questions that lead us to dead ends, questions that lead us to despair, questions that lead us down rabbit holes of awfulizing. What's the worst thing that could happen here? Oh, well, if that happens, then this happens. And we create that self-feeding cycle of awfulizing, versus, or not versus, but rather than a positive series of what is the best thing that can happen here? What do we need to change, to let go of? Classic visioning questions, as people probably know about me by now. I love those classic deep visioning questions that are open, expansive, and allow for the revelation, for a deeper revelation. What is it that I need to do to be present to the information in front of me that can make my life easier? What is it I need to do to really hear and then act upon that information that the universe has given me?
Right. Right. I mean, we talked about it in the car. There's oftentimes, we can get somewhat addicted to going to conferences, and just go to have the social experience, which is great. But to go and have a spiritual experience that is based on a spiritual intent, is a different thing. And one of the speakers gave a metaphor of the desert being this dry, when you first look at it, it's this dry, dead kind of experience. But all it takes is just a little rain, not a lot of rain, a little rain, little water, and that desert becomes alive with flowers and colors and life, and one would perceive it as being dead or inert. but given the right touch of spirit, i.e., water,
Yep.
all things are possible.
I had the pleasure. So from Denver to Las Vegas, there is a big desert in between. When you drive it, there's a lot of hours of desert in between, and because I had spent time in younger years running around those deserts and exploring those areas and experiencing those areas, I know when things are wet and when things aren't. And just driving through, I could see how wet the desert was and how much moisture and water there was in the desert, where oftentimes there isn't, and washes that are more often than not completely dry, that were filled with feet of water. And can imagine, and I can picture how that translates to life and to growth downstream.
Mm-hmm.
uh, and all the way back, we experienced water coming out of the sky as well. So lots of ideas flowing here at this point. And one of those things, folks, is the fact that we really do need to take a break, let a couple of our sponsors say hello, and let Rev Z and I take a sip of water. But we're going to be back with more of New Thought today here in just a couple of moments. Please don't go away. Stay with us, support our sponsors, and we'll be right back with more on New Thought Media Network after this. Stay tuned. And we're back with more of New Thought today on the New Thought Media Network. Thanks for joining us, folks. If you wonder what you stumbled into, my dear brother, Reverend LZ Sekou, and I get together every Tuesday afternoon at 2 p.m. Mountain Time, often with guests, to explore the future and ideas around where New Thought is heading, where this mighty philosophy is moving in the world. Next week, our guest is going to be Reverend Dr. Christina Tillotson, a woman who was instrumental in my education. I know, Rev Z, you had a great relationship with her as well. And Reverend Christina is still out there doing good work. We're going to talk to her next week, so plan to join us for that on Tuesday. And, Z, I wanted to share something with you. Here's something else I'm really grateful for. So at the conference over the weekend in Las Vegas, the organizers, Reverend Stacy Hilton and Cheryl Bell, they presented each of the presenters with a gift. And in my gift bag, I had a gratitude journal. And I thought, how perfect. The journal I've got near my bed is almost complete. Here's a gratitude journal specific. I'm going to start a new journal practice. And one of the things I came to, so I started last night. And one of the things I was so grateful for on the ride home is that there is almost a consistent internet access all the way from Denver to Vegas at this point, only a few little dead spots. And what that means is I can use my phone to access New Thought Radio and to access our radio station. And I was able to listen to the New Thought radio station all the way home on my phone through my car audio, because it just grabs the packets. And we ran into a little bit of a lag and a couple of dead spots here and there, but for the most part, you can access our radio station almost everywhere. And
Nice.
I'm really grateful that I had that with me on the ride home, rather than trying to bounce around from local station to local station the whole
Yeah, which would have been hard.
way. Yes, which is still hard. Uh, excuse me. Um, so again, lots to be grateful for in what's happening in New Thought right now. And um, one of the things that I spoke about is this, and I heard others that were speaking to this and adopting this idea, is that we're coming together as organizations more and more. And the fact that the Center for Spiritual Living in Las Vegas began by simply renting space to the Unity Church in the area, to now in a much more active and interactive partnership with that Unity community. And I got to meet and chat with Reverend Lisa just a little bit, the
Yes.
senior minister of the Unity Church there, and she was with us all weekend. And it was really a joint partnership between these two communities to make all this happen. And it was really, really great to see a community working together in what I think should be the norm rather than the exception. Right now, they're kind of, the experimental exception going on, but I think there's an opportunity for it to be more the norm than just the exception.
Oh, without a doubt. I mean, uh, one of the things that I do, and I don't do it as much now, but I did when I was running my own consulting business, is working with nonprofits that had a connecting block but weren't connecting, to utilize and reserve resources, right? Why pay two rents when we can pay one? Why have two secretaries when we can have one, maybe? And I know that starts looking at jobs, but but if the organization, if you have two organizations that fail, then it's going to be a lot more. And
Right.
and by them coming together, somebody may shift out and do something else, or they do job sharing, or there are a lot of different opportunities when people work together, which is the ultimate sermon we see in nature. Everything works together. The soil works with the water works with the plant works with the sun. Everything is working together, which is a clear indication for us to be successful and multiply. We need to work together, however that looks. And for us to start doing that at a spiritual level is key, I believe, because it'll begin, I think, also to knock down some doors about the differences of spirituality, not difference of religion, i.e. the rites and ceremonies and things like that that you do to make yourself close to God is one thing, but the actual experience and the actual living truth of that is something totally different, I believe, and that's shared across the board.
Yeah. There was that sense this weekend of really committed, dedicated, authentic community that that sometimes feels more elusive these days. Maybe that's just me. Maybe that's just the sense of visiting once in a while rather than being in part of a community week to week, week after week, sharing those annual celebrations again and again and again. And I think that's one of the opportunities, let's say, in focus ministry, is how to build that deep sense of community that makes something like this easy for everyone. Because, and now, again, more communities stepping outside their own shell and letting go of their own silo or echo chamber, opening to, hey, we really are talking about the same thing here, aren't we? And we just pull from, you tend to pull from one source and I tend to pull from a different source, and but ultimately we're all talking about oneness here, so let's get on about the job of being one.
Mm-hmm. And one thing that was key for me in that whole process is that ancient question, if you will, statement, who am I? Know thyself, right? Who
Right.
am I? And the question of know thyself, or the statement, however you want to perceive that, is key and was highlighted throughout the weekend, that we must begin to be about the business of discovering, finding, reclaiming, remembering, whichever word fits for your situation, figuring out who you are, who I am, who we are, so that we can begin to see the truth of the divine in everything and work with it. Because I can't, if I don't know who I am, I can't give you my best stuff, because I don't know what my best stuff is.
Right. Exactly.
So we got a little work to do. But I think the time change in about, I don't know, 10 days.
Yeah, something like that. Not even, it's 8 days now,
Yeah,
I think.
on the 4th, November 4th, or whatever it is. So it's a
Okay.
great time to use that artificial thing for making a declaration that as I go into the darkness, right? Because it's going to be getting dark real early then. As I go into this darkness to be born again, let me discover who I am. Let me find out what I know that has existed in me from the time I came on the planet.
There you go. Now that sounds like a powerful practice,
Yeah.
if you ask me.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's all, you do it on your own. That way you can be as honest, or hopefully as honest, and always honest with yourself. Nobody got to see what you write. Nobody got to, you know, hear you about that dream you always wanted to be this. I watched this TV program called The Voice. Some of you may be familiar with, where singers come on and they have the professionals with their back turned, and the only thing they know about the person that's trying to audition for the show is their voice. Uh,
Mm.
and there was a young man on there today. Well, I was watching the rerun. I'm at the recording. And he was like 43 years old, and he's married. Got in. He's like, "This is my last shot." Da da da. But he had done something else, and he quit that, came back to this love, and boom, he got picked. So now he's on a whole nother trajectory. Now, whether he makes it to the final or not, it's all right. He's now has some confirmation from what he think he is, or part of him, that he can move forward with.
My wife has gotten me turned on to Brendan Bouchard.
Not for me.
Um, I hadn't either, actually, and turns out the guy is pretty famous for in the personal development world, as far as a podcaster and an author, and one of the very first online content course creators
Okay.
to actually hit it big and make real money with online courses, and very powerful. And I've never really heard of him in the self-empowerment world. And um, and one of the things that and as she's started to get me familiar with him, and as I've started to listen to him just a little bit, one of the things that I hear again and again and again in his presentations is the power of the journal, and the power of taking these things. And we've been sitting here all day today talking about creating powerful questions. And there is something absolutely magical that happens when you write those things down and when you put them in a journal. And whether you reread your journal every day, or just visit your journal every month, or don't visit them for years at a time and then go back and look at them, and get lost in an old journal one day to see where you were and what you were doing and what you were working on, and recognize how far you've come. And the power of the journal and journaling is incredible. And again, grateful as presenters. One of our thank you gifts was a journal. How appropriate. And throughout the weekend, we were all asking these powerful and transformative questions. I think it's imperative to have a practice of capturing that information, of not just, what was that good idea I had when so and so was talking, but actually, whether it's right there in the moment, or in between sessions, or at the end of the day, or to really capture the essence, the words, and translate from the mental to the physical. There is that translation, that embodiment that happens when I am writing what it is that I'm experiencing, rather than just, I'll remember that good idea.
No. And the one thing about learning and journaling, if you will, I forget the exact percentage, but it goes, so if you hear it only, you remember or retain a certain amount. If you hear it and write it, you retain another amount. If you hear it, write it, and repeat it, you hear another amount. And if you hear it, write it, repeat it, experiences and or create an image for it, it keeps going up every time you become more engaged in that.
Yes. I'm not sure if I froze up or if LZ froze up. We'll find out in a minute here. It does appear that one of us is frozen in. We might both be talking at the same time. We'll see what happens here. But LZ, as what you're sharing really does remind me of 10,000 hours and gaining mastery through the repetition, through timefulness, through adding that consistency. I still appear to be connected. I'm not sure whose side it's on. It's on Brother LZ's side. It should kick him out sometime soon. Yeah, there we go. Okay, it's on his side. It kicked him out. Let's say he's on his way back. He's going to be joining us again here, folks. So what I'm going to do is let's go to our next commercial break, because we've about that time anyway. So we're going to take a real quick commercial break, say thank you to our organizational sponsors and individual donors, and be right back after that. After that, we'll come back with more of New Thought Today and here on the New Thought Media Network. Stay tuned. Stay with us. Don't go away. We'll be right back.
Please help us say thank you to our organizational sponsors, including the Hefferland Foundation, Affiliated New Thought Network, International New Thought Alliance, Science of Mind Archives and Library Foundation, Center for Spiritual Living Denver, Center for Spiritual Living Midtown, New Thought Philadelphia, Planned Happiness Institute, Summit Center for Spiritual Living, One Heart Retreats, Center for Spiritual Living on the Lake, Unity Kitchener, Unity Spiritual Center Ottawa, Om Center for Spiritual Living, Satya Center, Begin Within Ministries, Center for Spiritual Living North Jersey, Unity of Savannah, and the Center for Spiritual Living Seattle, as well as all of our individual donors. Thank you for being part of the New Thought Media Network. Please like, share, and subscribe. New Thought Media Network, positively inspiring.
And I'm back with more of New Thought today here on the New Thought Media Network. I will find out if look at that. I I love it how Spirit works. We just got back from our commercial break, Z, and here you are. So let me just once more, real quickly, say thank you to all of our organizational sponsors and individual donors for making New Thought Media Network what it is, helping us to create great, engaging content that we can send out into the world, into the cosmos, and turn more people on to the New Thought philosophy. And that's I want to kind of explore that before we wrap up here today, Z, because I was really, really psyched when Reverend Stacy called and said, "Hey, we're doing a conference, and you might want to be involved from the media side." And we started talking about it all, and I said, "What's the title?" And she said, "New Thought in the Desert." And I went, "Oh, I love it. Let's go." And because we are, I believe, as a movement, as a religion, as a whole bunch of different organizations, I believe that we are starting to truly embrace our identity as New Thought rather than just our identity as various traditions within the New Thought religion.
Yeah. I mean, it's all one, right? I mean, I like to look at it as, if you have a swimmer or a track star or a tennis player, someone that athletics make great metaphors, but there are many different, all of these different things, they don't all train the same way. There are many different ways of training, right? They have, and so, but when they come on the court to play, it's the same game, same rules, same out of bounds. I don't care what you did before or after. When you come in, you got to hit the ball in the rectangle if you're playing tennis. If if you're shooting basketball, you got to get it in the hoop, right? And so the training that there may be some overlaps, and then there's going to be some differences. But the key thing is when you play the game's the same regardless to what you're training. And so when I look at the religious organizations and the rituals and the ceremonies and all those things to train you to be perceptive and receptive of the spirit, once you go into life, it's the same. You got to perceive, you got to remember, you got to love, you got to show humility no matter what your training is, and if you don't, it'll show up.
Yes. We're back on the Love, Serve, and Remember song. I know how much you love that song.
I love it.
And that's a part of it. How do we love, serve, and remember? And the service part is so imperative in all of this. That's what I think. And I know that New Thought hasn't lost that. And I think that is a great growth opportunity for New Thought in individual communities to step into that place of how do we serve, not just how do we serve a bigger organization or but how do we serve the people that would most benefit from our support, but also from the knowledge and the wisdom that is inherent within this, the empowerment that is inherent within this philosophy when we come to learn these truths and how to use them.
Yeah, 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 yeah. And one of the lasting takeaways for me was community. Without community, and so we have to begin or re-begin or reignite or continue, if you're already in a community that's thriving, how to begin to spread that idea, that concept of what true community is, because that's what's going to see us through.
Yeah.
Working together.
Woo! Working together. Here we go. We got some work in front of us. And um, and we do have 10 days to vote. So we're going to leave it there, folks, and wrap this up for today.
Yes.
I still have a little bit of trouble connecting with you, Z. So I know you're there in spirit. I know you're there in the consciousness of it all. We're going to wrap this up for today, folks. Thanks for joining us. Please come on back next week. As I said, our special guest next week will be Reverend Dr. Christina Tillotson. Give the network a like, share, and subscribe on whatever platform you're watching, YouTube, Facebook, whatever it might be. We appreciate you doing your best to stay connected to what we're doing in an ever-changing technological environment. I can guarantee that. So we're going to get out of here for now. Until next time, thanks for being with us. Thanks for watching.